Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Power Hour by Constant Contact real estate version or edition. We are so excited that you're here and watching our fantastic panel today. The COVID crisis has had a severe effect on many economic activities for many businesses all over the globe, with the real estate industry being one of the hardest hitting industries, and uncertainty remains about where there will be an opportunity to make up for lost ground. However, there are real estate professionals who are powering through this pandemic and powering on their businesses, which we're really excited about. And that's what today is about. We've gathered some of our really fantastic real estate professional customers from Constant Contact to have them share with us a little bit about what they're doing to power through the 2020 pandemic. Their strategies and their tactics for not only continuing to do business with their clients, but expanding their business to do more as well. So we are so excited that you're all here. My name is Jenna Schaefer, and I'm a marketing manager here at Constant Contact. I will be one of your expert moderators for this discussion today. And then alongside, I have my colleague, Dave. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Dave.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dave Sharust, and I am the Director of Content Marketing at Constant Contact, and really excited to be here today. Thank you to each of our panelists who will meet here in a moment officially, but really grateful to have you here and be doing one of these things. One of the things that we've often found as we talk to small businesses across many industries is the ability to hear from others within their industry is always valuable to them, to hear what they're doing and learn what they can steal, for a lack of a better term, on what they can do to help and implement within their business. So really grateful to have this opportunity here to speak with each of you today. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for attending and participating in this discussion. We're really excited to hear what you have to say. So what I'd like to do is pass the, go around our panel and have you introduce yourself, share with us how you became a real estate agent or a little bit about your business, and what brings you here today, why you're on our panel. So let's go ahead and start off with Melanie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Swayze. I'm a residential realtor based in Boston, specifically in a neighborhood called Jamaica Plains, southern part of the city. I'm celebrating 10 years in the business this year. We were going to have an entire rollout of the entire calendar year of parties and celebrations noting 10 years, but that will be postponed for another time. One of the things to celebrate about my business is that it's grown by referral. About 85% of my business consistently is by word of mouth and by repeat clientele, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm happy to talk with Amy and Marianne today.
Thank you, Melanie. We're glad to have you.
Yeah.
Amy, let's go ahead and have you introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Amy Balowitz. I in the Concord Market Center for Keller Williams, but I live in Bolton, so I'm a little bit further west, but I do cover sort of a large area of Metro West Boston. I'm in residential real estate. I've been in real estate for about 5 years. I have 4 kids, so I stayed at home as a stay-at-home mom for about 10 years, and then once they went into school full-time, I got my real estate license, and I'm so glad I did. I love every minute of it. And I'd say one thing to celebrate about my business is same sort of referral-based business, very much focused on my sphere, you know, town of Bolton and surrounding towns, whether it's with, you know, sporting groups that I'm involved in or organizations, just, you know, making relationships with them. And that's definitely grown my business. And during the pandemic, I've actually had the best year yet. So go figure.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Good news.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for attending and participating today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And Marianne, last but not least.
Thank you. So I started in the insurance business way back when with Liberty Mutual, and I was fortunate to be part of an insurance agency startup. So I was account executive, vice president, and had a lot of fun and really honed my customer relationship skills and very detail oriented. And Ronca Limited was started by my partner, husband, soulmate about 40 years ago. So I got my license when I was in between insurance careers and I had some time. And so I was always in the background. However, about 10 years ago, I started to become more involved and fully active for the last 6 years. And so we are strictly commercial. Very little retail, mostly industrial office. And so we've had, of course, many accomplishments over the years. And like you, Melanie and Amy, most of our businesses has been built over the years, a lot of referral business. And currently I am particularly becoming busier with Cummings Properties, who we have developed a great relationship by doing subleases for them. And in this day now, there's a lot of unknowns. So on one hand, people are finding that they're in a lease and that's too long or too much space, and they're looking to sublease. And what we are expecting is that so many people who don't know what they want, they don't want to go into a long lease, they're looking for an opportunity of a shorter term and at a below market rate. So we've been very busy, and I'll talk more about what we've been doing for the last few months.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. It's good that everybody's here. We're so excited. And what I'd like to do is start out the conversation with learning a little bit about what you're all doing with your existing customer base, because my assumption is, and my assumption with the real estate industry is that there's always been a narrative around real estate where you purchase a property and you're kind of done. You've invested in that, and that's what you're going to do for a while, right? And that it's not really a repeat business. But I assume that maybe that's not quite the case. And so I want to hear a little bit what you do to engage with your existing clients and get them to maybe refer business. It sounds like that's a huge part of your business is referrals, and helping them kind of generate those leads. Or, can you share a little bit about how your strategy has changed with existing clients to maintain those relationships with them and engage them in that kind of way? So I'm going to put it up for discussion, and go ahead, Dave. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say, I was wondering if maybe we could just back up one step before that, right? Because I think what was interesting, even in the introductions, before we get into like how you're managing stuff with your actual customers and things like that. But Amy, you mentioned that this is the best time for you right now, and obviously tons of businesses have been impacted by what's been going on just globally. But I'd be interested in all of your perspectives. I mean, how has it like just impacted business as usual, like just in the sense of like business, not like what you're doing day to day, but like, are people buying, are people selling? Are you finding it different in the commercial industry versus the residential industry? Just like, where are you right now? Like, do you feel like business is good and like, yay, or you are like, oh crap, this is really screwing things up for me?
You want me to? So
yeah, sure. I mean,
I would say, in March when everything kind of got shut down, it was kind of like, oh, March and April were really sort of slow. So, I just took that opportunity to reach out to my sphere and my past clients in a way that was just very authentic. How are you doing? Is there any way I can help you? And it wasn't about real estate really at all. And then I felt, I don't know about you guys, but like May 1st, all of a sudden my phone starts ringing, and people are like either tired of being at home, looking at their walls, or they don't have that home office or whatever it was. And at the same time, interest rates kept going down, and that was sort of the big news. So I think it was a combination, there's buyers just started to, I think they felt a little bit more comfortable with the whole COVID situation and wearing the masks and things. So they started coming out in droves looking to buy because they had that pent up demand and they were taking advantage of the interest rates. And then I think sellers have been much more slower to be comfortable listing or to be ready to list, because where are they going to go in this time? So it's been a lot of education around how this can happen and be safe for everyone. So I think my business has been good because I'm trying to get listings from people that have been reluctant, but I have a lot of buyer demand as well. So trying to match those two together. But it's been strong. The real estate market has been very strong, surprisingly. And I think the interest rates are certainly helping to fuel that.
Melanie, are you seeing that on your side too?
I'm seeing a kind of an extension of what Amy is seeing because I'm in the city. I was actually remiss in saying in my introduction that I'm a realtor with Unlimited Sotheby's International Realty, and my team is called Good Boston Living. I'm the principal of my team. There's so much to say. I am having squarely the most solid year that I have ever had, like dramatically so. I've already done more production this year than I did last year, the entire year. And I think, part of your question was, well, what have you done? I actually forget because there were two different questions. What have you done to stay in touch with your folks, and how is the market performing right now broadly? I mean, I think right now, what we saw for the beginning of 2020, before COVID was apparent to us, is between the first week of January, truly, which the spring season can start that early in Boston, between the first week of January and literally the middle of March, lots of properties were going off market in, let's say, 5 to 7 days. And then literally from mid-March to early May, first week of May, those same types of properties were going off market in 1 to 3 days. So what we had was people who were really looking to move and felt like they needed to, being so clear and so decisive, plus sellers realizing, look, I want to limit the kind of exposure that it would typically take to get my property under agreement. So whoever steps forward quickly and decisively, let's get this done. So it's been that way. Things have really dialed up since. What's been surprising to me about the activity is what I'm calling this great reshuffling, where you would expect people to look for higher ground. So people who are renting a small 1-bedroom in the Fenway are probably going to want to move out to Jamaica Plain and get a 2-bedroom with a deck and maybe a yard. So that might be a starting point. But what we're also seeing is a lot of people who have a fine sized home are looking to reshuffle and move further out or go even bigger. So what I'm finding is a lot of people are looking for what I call higher ground. They're looking for either more space inside because of just necessity for work from home and the private work from home. It's one thing, like you were saying, Dave, earlier, to be able to camp out at your dining room when your kids are at school. It's an entirely other thing when they're running around you all day and bouncing off the wall. So you need a quiet space. You need a place to close off, right? So a lot of people are finding they need that. A lot of people are finding that they actually need outdoor space. So that's a reason to move and think about the suburbs. A lot of people are actually feeling like living in condo life, even if it's not a large building, even if it's a 3, 4, 5 or 6 unit building, and their kids are home all day bouncing off the walls. It's starting to cause issues with their very thoughtful neighbors who are just kind of can't take it, right? So it's like there's a squeeze in all these directions. So for a lot of people, they're looking for more interior space, more practical interior space, more privacy inside, more privacy outside, more room to spread out. And then what I'm also hearing from a lot of people who I would not expect to be hearing from is, oh, this is our chance to leave the city. So I would see that that's impacting Amy's market, where a lot of people are saying, you know what, I'm not going to have to be as central anymore for work. We're learning at my job that we can just do everything pretty practically at a distance. I'm only going to have to come into the city once or twice a week rather than daily. Why don't we go get that yard that we want? Why don't we get that house abutting conservation land? So there's just people with resources moving about and doing so very urgently. I mean, calling me and being like, Melanie, it's now. Can we list our place now? Can we do this now? So there's something that's tilting people into like shifting their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. So Mary Ann, right? Like, is that similar to what you're seeing on the commercial side? Like, I feel like there probably is a vast difference, right?
Yes, there is, because right now it's more of on hold for a lot of people, because businesses, it takes more time for them to make, big financial, more long-term decisions. So what we're expecting and where we're looking to use more marketing and hopefully Constant Contact is to get the word out. And we've been around a long time, but to just let them know that we're here to help. And where we expect that companies will be looking for satellite offices in the burbs is to be ready for that. So, oh, excuse me, let me hang up on them. Sorry
Someone's
about
calling
that.
right now to find a place.
Hey, Marianne, while you put your call on hold, I chair the board of a nonprofit here in the city, and we've been thinking about big real estate questions for ourselves, so that I find myself talking to lots of different entities, real estate developers, investors, and so on. And what I was noticing in the early part of the lockdown, March, April, is that a lot of businesses downtown are starting to think about how do they shift outward, because it's just going to be cheaper, and because they're not, either because their workers are not going to have to all be in central in one place, so they could just get something cheaper with fewer urban downtown amenities, and or they actually need more space so people can have enough adequate distance. So it looks like this actually could be a shift, a pivot point for you all in that way.
Right, definitely. And so because of the nature of our business and where we're a boutique of two, we have been working virtually for a long time. So it's just the two of us. So no more kitty cats and no dogs. So it's pretty quiet. I know it is kind of sad and lonely sometimes. But there aren't a lot of distractions. So for us, we've been set up in our home office pretty much. So that's been, other than dealing more with Zoom and that type of technology. But we did a lot of networking and being out there. And so it's been a transition for that sort of thing to transition to the Zoom and offline. Having said that, Ernie being more involved with site searches and working pretty much Eastern Massachusetts and not as limited as I am for more office, within the burbs. He's on a lot of Zooms and international people, so he's getting a broader perspective. And as we all are, residential or commercial or most businesses, we tend to be very positive. So the first reaction, how's things going? Oh, it's great. But not an awful lot happening, which is wonderful for you in residential. It's just like fabulous, and all the attached industries. But there will be opportunities. What we're hearing is that aside from distancing and all, with large Boston towers, getting in and out of your office, having to make a reservation or stay in line to get on the elevator, and how many people get on it. And I used to work in Boston and loved it. And I can't imagine, just like not, getting on the elevator with all these people and being mushed in, and always wanting to be at the door because I'm 5'1" and I didn't want to get claustrophobic, but it's not funny. It's pretty serious. Yeah. So what we did, the first thing we did is we realized that we need to upgrade our website. We had it done a few years ago, and it just gave us more time to really go through it page by page. And what we're doing on the homepage, we have a link to Economic Times, and so we have links to what is current. And so we're looking to now use email marketing and social marketing, working on that to get the word out and get people interested to just see what's going on, just to know that they have a place to see what's going on, whether it's the general economy, whether it's local, US, the market. So there's still plenty to do. We are definitely not bored. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for that. Sorry, I just wanted to kind of just level set us there with just how people were doing there before we jumped into like just how people are communicating there. So thank you. Go ahead, Jenna.
No, I appreciate that, Dave. I that's great to hear. I'm curious because especially Marianne, you were saying you did a lot of networking and that was a part of your business, and now it's being replaced with a lot of virtual networking or Zoom meetings. So I want to hear a little bit more about that and what you're all doing to, again, stay engaged with people that normally you would meet face to face and now can't. So yeah, I want to hear a little bit more about that.
I
Do you want to
typically,
start us off here? Oh, go ahead, Amy. Sorry.
sorry. I typically give people the option. I mean, when we were really in lockdown mode, it was all Zoom virtual. And then when the restrictions started to lift up again, you know, people that felt comfortable, we would just meet, you know, have a face mask on. And I just like the face-to-face interaction, especially with real estate. You know, it's a people business, so it's being able to see people and you know, have that conversation is super important. But if not, I've done plenty of Zoom buyer consultations. But really to see homes, I've done a few FaceTime if they're out of state or they want to see the house before they make an appointment. But most things have been in person, and we've just been super, you know, wearing the mask and the gloves and Purelling ourselves up, that kind of thing. So it's still been very face to face, just not what it typically would be.
That's great, because I feel like face-to-face interaction there's nothing like it, right? And you know, Dave and I always say that businesses are built off of relationships, and so it's when something like this happens, to have to try to replace it with something else, there's really nothing like it. So I'm glad to hear that that's still something that you're able to do, as long as you're safe about it. So that's great. What about you?
Yeah. Well, so in terms of staying in contact with folks, my team member who oversees marketing for our crew was really steadfast in the beginning. We need to be finding people. We need to land where everyone else is. And in that first several weeks, everyone was on social. And so even though I might not automatically gravitate to social to kind of like hang out, I let myself do that for the first several weeks. Because there was just all of this intimacy and openness and vulnerability and people looking for just camaraderie and affirmation and connection and guidance. And so what we decided to do was launch a series of live interviews. So we did some lives on Instagram and then some lives on Facebook, interviewing interior designers on how you can actually rework your space right now to make it practical, how you can start prepping for if you're thinking about selling later this season and we think the season's going to ramp up, what kind of work can you do as a preparation now so that you're ready to go later? But also we had really vulnerable conversations, like I had an estate attorney come on and we talked about the importance of getting your house in order, your financial house in order, and thinking about wills and trusts, and thinking about how that's not actually for just wealthy people. It's about what happens if you end up in the hospital, what happens if one of your young ones ends up in the hospital. So we just really tried to prime people for having the conversations they were probably afraid to have but needed to. And so we did a lot of that. I also did a live interview with the broker of my firm, and we just reflected together for like an hour on where the market was during the recession and how this time is different, just to give context. And for me, it's really relevant because I actually built my business during the recession. I started in 2010. And so all of that kind of context, I think, really made a lot of impact for people. I've been getting a lot of communication over social and email. But we also did my old school, very tactile thing. I just started writing personal notes to people, thinking about you, how are you doing? We ordered a bunch of masks made by a local maker here in the city and started mailing or dropping them off at people's houses. So just trying to like stay connected. And then more recently, now that, you know, some level of restriction is lifted, enough that people feel like they can move about, we're not ready to throw a party yet, although I really wish I could. I really wanted to throw a summer dance party this year. But I just did a political fundraiser last week on Zoom. So I just invited all kinds of people, and really people from all walks of life, and had a group of some of my close relationships, who a lot of them are clients and key referral partners of mine, co-host that fundraiser with me. So it was a reason to get together to give people information about a thing they could do something about, but they got to see me, they got to hang out. So there's a lot of that kind of thing where we're trying to find ways to just touch people where they are with what they're thinking about, may or may not be about real estate. And then in terms of real estate, I actually am doing a lot of this. I'm perfectly fine with doing Zoom communication. I almost sometimes can't even remember if the conversation I had was by phone or by Zoom. It's kind of interchangeable for me. And what I like actually about this format, as much, even with all the like technical glitches and the dropping and the, oh my God, is we're like, our guard is down. We're more forgiving of each other, you know? And so that allows for a certain kind of honesty. And so a conversation that I might have very efficiently in my office in an hour and a half or 2 hours, now sometimes it's spread out as a 3-hour thing. So we're doing 1.5 hours here, and then we do another call next week. It's like spreading out, and we're giving each other allowance, like sync and then follow up. And so there's a lot of contact. There's just a lot of contact. And then in person, I'm pretty strict about it. You know, we're only meeting in person if we have to at a property, and pretty specific about how we do that. And people, you know, totally appreciate that.
So do you feel like some of these things that you've started to do virtually, you're going to continue to do even, I mean, maybe the pandemic's not going to end anytime soon, but as it starts to slow down or whatever happens in the future, do you feel like you'll take some of these things and continue to do them?
Yeah, I think that video calling will probably just feel like more like a seamless extension of what we do. I used to do it for clients who are at a distance anyway. So that will probably just feel that much easier for everybody, you know, for clients out of state. But it doesn't necessarily feel like revolutionary to me. It's just another tool. You know, it's like, right, I might text clients, we might FaceTime, but I prefer Zoom for a certain thing. It's just part of the menu of ways that we can reach out. So I'm not sure. It doesn't feel like it's necessarily this big tilt. I honestly think once we're able to start being in person again, we're going to be so hungry for that we're going to want to do that. So, you know, but I enjoy this now, and I like that we're all kind of just giving each other a pass on not being perfect.
I like that.
So I think, you know, what's interesting, I just wanted to jump on that for a minute, because like I think what we've been finding for a lot of businesses just outside of real estate itself, right? But this has been an accelerant for people to start doing these things. And I guess my question would be, do you feel this is a positive, right? Based on what you're seeing in all of this happening? Because like I know from my perspective, I think you're mentioning people being more forgiving and being more real and vulnerable. And like, these are always kind of the things, like marketers might use the term authentic, right? Like, but like, these are the things that we've seen that prior to any of this COVID stuff happening, the people that were using these tools to be themselves and to connect with people and provide value and do these things, like those are the people that are being really successful. And I think now that other people are kicked into that and forced to do it because there's not another option necessarily, but I'm just wondering, like, do you feel like, have you seen the a positive gain from that? And I guess, do you feel that like, oh yeah, like there are definitely things that you're going to continue to do based on what you're seeing in this moment right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely quite a bit of positive, I mean, that has come of it. I mean, just personal life, you know, being here with the kids. I mean, this can be a very nights, weekends, you're working all the time kind of business. Like I said, I have 4 kids, they're in sports. Well, the sports aren't happening right now. So we're eating together, we're going on weekend trips to the beach when we can. So although I am busy, some of like, especially like the Zoom meetings, some of the training classes that we're having in the office, they're all here. So I'm not going into the office. So I've gained, you know, 2 hours in my day. So just being able to have more time, even, you know, I'm filling that time, but I am getting more time back with my family, which is very good.
Yeah.
Marianne, something to say as well.
Well, I was just thinking that one of the things is that Ernie is a member of the Society of Industrial and Office Realtors. And so they have local meetings and annual conventions, and sometimes we've gone, sometimes we haven't. But lately, they've had more Zoom meetings, and especially there's a group from overseas, and they've been getting together. And so that's really been pretty great to connect with people from other parts of the country and the world, and hopefully that will continue. It just and what's funny is that they seem so much more chill. I mean, the Zoom calls, they're just much more relaxed, and it's a little bit more humor, and so it's kind of fun. But what I miss is that we for instance, I had to refer someone to a business broker for business valuation. So I was looking through my database, and I made notes as to how we met with this gentleman, because otherwise I wouldn't remember. And I remember him saying that he has a 5-year-old and things like that. So I was able to say, I hope you're all doing well. And we met at a TD Bank in Burlington event that somebody had invited us. So the advantage of some of those meetings is that those are not happening, because every time it's a different group of people, and by sitting down, you sit down at a table and, see who comes to you, and you may only talk to 1 or 2 people, but at least you're able to have a more personal and in-depth conversation. Zoom, we take turns, and so it's those things. So there's plus and minuses on both sides. Definitely time-wise, being able to sleep a little late or work till later, and today was a little more dressed up, but sometimes we don't have to, right? So, yeah. But we're anxious to get going and to start helping people, and that's what we believe that we can. I think what you're doing on residential, I think it's just amazing, because it just expands so much. I think it affects the family life, and then that broadens, and we're hoping from the business life that then that'll filter down to make people's lives better on the personal side. But it's a challenge. Always was.
Well, it sounds like you all are still, even though there are those challenges, that you're all still able to connect with people, and kind of like what Melanie was saying, people are a little bit more forgiving. I feel like it's maybe humanizing our businesses, humanizing people again. It seems like it's been a good reset for most of you. So that's fantastic. In terms of engaging with your clients and looking for certain properties for them, have they started, have you noticed a difference in the things that they're looking for? I know that you, Melanie, went into a little bit more about, like, okay, people are going crazy at home with their kids. They might need a bigger space, or they're looking to move out into more of the suburbs. I want to hear a little bit more about what people are looking for, or some of those trends that you've noticed maybe.
Yeah, I speak to that best.
To Amy or me?
You.
Okay. Yeah, I realized even when you said people are moving out to the suburbs, I thought, well, it's not exactly that. Like, that's happening as a result of Boston. And so we are Boston area folks on this call, and I think it's worth just having that context about that conversation, which our market is just different than so many real estate markets around the country. And some study just came out last week saying that Boston is, at this point, was ranked as the most resilient city in the U.S. with respect to home value, because of the professional industries, the hospital industry, biotech. There's a kind of steadiness. I don't know many people who've been furloughed or lost their jobs. I work with some very high producing lenders, and they have a very, very, very small fraction of their clients who've been furloughed and not been able to get financing. That's dramatic. And so I would say that it's not necessarily that folks are calling me and saying, Melanie, we're ready to move to the suburbs, although some people are, yes, I want that green space, I want to be out near conservation land. But for the most part, what we're finding is that there's so little coming to market. Like Amy was saying, there's even less inventory than the severely limited inventory we've become accustomed to over the last almost decade. So there's so little to choose from. There's competition for what's here because people are trying to do that urgent reshuffling. And so not everyone can actually compete in Boston, and they have to look farther out. So I have numerous clients right now who are buying on the South Shore, the North Shore, and Central Mass, like spreading far out, like just going. Lynn, Brockton, Marlborough, Ashland. And these are people who typically would have been looking in a Boston neighborhood. So that has to do with limited inventory, and that laid over on top of we actually do need more space means then that people are going farther afield. So that's a big thing that I'm noticing that's really different, and I would not have expected quite in the same way.
Yeah, it's hard to be a buyer right now, to be honest. I mean, it's like this frenzied atmosphere. As soon as something hits the market, it's just like, we got to get in, and you got to be ready to write those offers, and then they miss out, and it's hard. It's hard. We definitely need more inventory. So that's
and you know what is all. Sorry to cut you off, Amy.
Okay.
What also is hard, again, more urban setting context. This may not be happening as much where you are, but you just never know with any given property, the way you're going to access it could be dramatically different than how you're going to be able to access another listing that's very similar. It comes down to that seller's priorities, how that agent is handling the listing, how urgently the seller wants to put this under contract, what they're doing for COVID protections. So you might not see something until the weekend because they're just holding off on showings, or they're going to do an open house, but it's by appointment. And they might start out by saying, this is happening a lot in the burbs, like farther out, Framingham, further south. They'll say, okay, well, you're going to have sign up for a slot during what would typically be an open house window on the weekend, allow that you're going to have 15 minutes to come in. But they might be bombarded with so many requests that they have to then shrink those windows of 15 minutes down to 6 minutes. So, okay, you're going to have 6 minutes to tour. So your clients need to be super prepared for what they're going to go look at and be prepared to make a decision based on touring a property within 6 minutes. And that may be their only time to get in. And that's the kind of competition we're seeing well beyond Boston, because people are priced out of Boston. That's something we wouldn't have necessarily anticipated. It's that it's just unpredictable. I've put 4 properties under contract since Friday. And I would say two of them were with buyers who we got the seller to cancel their weekend showings. And in at least one case, the seller was planning to review offers midweek the following week. So they come to market Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they'll say, okay, we're going to review offers early next week. Well, I'm competitive. I want my client to not have to compete with everyone else. We're very dialed up and clear about their priorities and their means and their needs and what they're willing to do to get something. So in 2 cases, we wrote the seller the most compelling offer we could think of, and compel them to say, I see. We could do this with you, and that means we don't have to keep doing showings through the weekend. Okay, even though they had an offer deadline set. And so for one of them, we put something under agreement. I think it was like Saturday morning. They canceled 13 showings that day. So for some of the tactics we would have been using in our already tight seller's market gets even more dialed up now, where you're trying to like weave in and find these opportunities for building that relationship with that listing agent, finding out what you can find out about that seller's needs, and I think there's a window of opportunity here. I think we can do something that will change the seller's mind. So there's a lot of that in play, but because it's just so unpredictable, you can't guarantee that even if they have a deadline, you're going to make it to that deadline. And you can't guarantee, the prices are just higher now, significantly higher than they would have been in January for any given thing. So it's really interesting. I had a feeling that the market was going to have this kind of frenzy after the restrictions let up. I don't think I guessed that the inventory would remain this spotty. It really is spotty. You just don't know what's going to come about. And then there are also some things that are sitting a little bit because sellers are probably a little bit ambitious, and some buyers are like, yeah, but I don't need that thing. I could just go farther out and get more space. So it's a really interesting shifting right now.
Absolutely. And it's hard because a lot of these that are coming out of the city are first time home buyers. So when they have 6 minutes to see a house,
totally.
And you're telling them they have to go above asking, waive the home, I wouldn't tell them to waive a home, but just in general, some of the things that we're telling them that they're just like, ah, it's hard. It's hard.
How do you mentally prepare a buyer to make those kind of quick decisions? Like, I know just me personally, looking at, purchasing a property, that's a big investment for me. So walking into a situation like that where it's competitive and they have to act quickly, what have you been doing to help them mentally prepare for those things?
Just, educating on what we're seeing. And I think a lot of times it takes, obviously it's a lot of conversation, but it's also the experience of, missing out on that house that first one that they looked at a few and they're like, okay, we're ready now. And they were ready and they thought like they had the best offer, and then they don't get it, because there was 10 other offers. So that is, I think, the best education for them is just, okay, this is what you're talking about. We got to up our game. We got to be ready. And their level of motivation. I mean, sometimes we're saying, if you don't have to move right now, like maybe now isn't the time, because, if they don't have those funds that is going to make them super competitive, it can be very, very devastating to keep losing out on house after house. So, sometimes we're waiting, or we're looking at things that, have been sitting maybe a little bit that need a little more work, or trying to find off-market opportunities. You just have to get creative as well.
How are you educating them? I know, Melanie, you mentioned before that you were doing, like when the pandemic first started, you started to do lives on social and things like that. Have any of you done video tutorials, or I don't know, are there different like technologies or channels that you've been using to do this type of education?
I'll say one thing is really interesting right now that I don't know how to answer it. I don't know how to pinpoint. I'm getting not only my referrals and referrals from referrals, like that's happening. I'm getting people contacting me who like have heard about me from someone who knows me that I don't know. That's really interesting right now. But also people are landing on my site somehow. And I think right now people are actually combing their home and they're trying to equip themselves. And, with the absence of being able to walk into a real estate office, they're doing a lot of combing online. So people are finding me just landing at my site, filling out a questionnaire that I've had up on my site for years that usually I send to someone by email once they first contact me. But people are contacting me having filled out the form on my site right now. So that's really interesting. I think people are trying to educate themselves, and they're trying to find a person that they feel like they can trust and who would actually be a resource to them. I am very resource heavy. So for me, it's less about the house and it's more about the why. What are you trying to do? What's the need? And thinking through a very, very clear strategy and helping people rank their priorities and have the hard conversations between each other, and so that they have a really, really clear-eyed look about who they are in the market, who their competition is likely to be, and who their sellers likely to be, and how they place themselves in time based on how much cash they have, how much risk taking they're comfortable with. So I have very intensive buyers meetings. I did one last night that was more than 3 hours long. But those people met one of my team members at a showing at a listing of mine on Sunday. They had a buyer's meeting with me last night, super nerdy. One of them is a management consultant and like has a lot of questions. And in my meeting, she was just like, didn't have questions, which I think was surprising for her. She was just like, oh, and so I just helped them like really shift their perspective, because they were doing all this stuff all over the internet. And I'm like, stop, right? We're going to get you real focused, and we're going to have you two face each other and have the conversation that you haven't had yet about the fact that you actually don't actually see eye to eye how you want to do this, but we're going to get there. And this is who you guys are in the market. And so these folks will probably be under agreement on something within a week. They're focused, they're teed up, but they know, like we've talked extensively about, why would someone waive a financing contingency? Why would someone waive an inspection contingency? How much cash do you have that you can take certain kind of risks? What does it mean to take that kind of risk on this kind of property versus that kind of property in this section of the neighborhood versus that? So we're backing into a strategy based on their means, their actual cash, their comfort level with risk or ability to take risk, and their actual needs, not their wants, but their actual needs. And so that's how. So we're focusing on properties they can actually afford to be competitive on in terms of price and terms. And that's what's fun, because then they have leverage. Then they have ability to approach something with strength without sort of being kicked back on their heels. So I do a lot of rigorous work up front so that I'm so clear. when we see a listing come to market, we're already sizing it up over email very quickly. What are the issues with this? We're looking for problems. And okay, so if we did an offer like this, that, boom. So we're going to go look at it and see what it actually feels like. So they're already thinking about an offer as they're walking through, pretty darn clear about it. And then I'm also gauging what I think the market is going to do for that thing right now. And so it's very like nuanced and contextual and of the moment. And that's what I enjoy about it.
That's great. Marianne, I kind of want to hear your perspective on the commercial side, how you've been educating people and kind of preparing them for the future too.
I was thinking of that because that is a huge part of the business always. Even though you're dealing with business people, they may know their widget business, but when it comes to real estate, we are the experts in negotiating and understanding the market. And so we have a lot of tools and resources, and we partner with CoStar LoopNet so that right off from the beginning, we're able to offer them very detailed information, competitive information, what's available within the certain area. And like you said, Melanie, finding out what they really want, because so often they think that they want to be here, and then you realize that no, really, that's going to work better. So you just have to have those conversations and understand a little bit more about the company and what everybody wants and who's the decision maker. Make sure that you're talking to the person that can decide. And a lot of considerations. I mean, in commercial, it's hard to believe, but we were working on a sublease for a wonderful lab space in Beverly. And we needed someone where the managers, the top executives, lived on the North Shore, because otherwise they were the ones that would lead from the top down. Otherwise, the people who work for them, they're like, no, we want to be in Cambridge, we want to go to Starbucks at midnight. What are we going to do stuck up there? And yet there are a lot of businesses in that area. But yes, a lot of education, and that's something we've done for a long time, letting them know what the market is. When I send out a proposal for someone who's interested in subleasing their space, first thing I do is send them competitive, show them what's available in their area within the range of people who might be interested, who are looking for similar spaces. We either want to go up or down, what's been leased in the last 6 months to a year. So, you give them all that data, and then it's a lot easier to talk about the proposal and to let them know what we do, and that our fee in light of how much they owe to the rest of their lease, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's really, a drop in the bucket for what we do, because sometimes the first thing they say, and it might be different in residential, but especially with subleases. With direct leases, it's a different story because you get paid by the landlord. Yeah, so it's interesting.
It sounds really like people are. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Melanie.
I was just reflecting that I really like. It's so like pleasing to hear that you're actually helping these executives think about what their workers' life would be like, and that they actually have to factor and think about their workers as a market. What do they need to be happy? Obviously we know Google is really good at that, but other businesses need to think about that too. Where do your workers want to be, especially if they're working around the clock? What do they need around them? What are their amenities? And so it's just nice to hear.
Important.
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like people are super hungry for knowledge. They're searching for it. Like you said, Melanie, they're almost like combing through the internet for this kind of information. How have you all been leveraging that in, say, your marketing strategies at all? And if so, how would you, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I typically do a bi-weekly newsletter, and before it was, I would talk about all and I try to be very, I'm pretty hyper focused on mostly the town I live in. That's sort of my sphere, and that's the majority of my business comes from people I know. So just being very local centric. So highlighting local events, highlighting local businesses, and that type of thing. So I usually do monthly events in the area, and I haven't been able to do that because there aren't events. So instead, I'm sending out local market updates so people can see that although we are in the COVID situation, that the market is moving and things are selling quickly and over asking and things like that. So it's more of an education of things are still happening, the market is strong, getting that word out.
Great.
Now, our challenge has always been that in terms of marketing, where on one side we're looking to do business anywhere east of Massachusetts in some, let's say, doing site searches for customers. We've done a lot of site searches for self-storage and other types of development. So, and then for me, it's more office leasing, maybe down from Bedford, Burlington up to the North Shore in that area. And our customers can be in any business. So often the marketing, this target marketing has always been a challenge, because anybody who's looking for an office or industrial, or anybody who wants to sell or lease, we can help. So how do you get out to everyone and yet, without spending gazillion dollars and send out mailings everywhere? So that's why referrals, and you mentioned reaching out to customers. That's one thing that we really need to, I have to be honest, we need to catch up to stay more in touch, because we don't have a lot of repeat customers in this business, really. A few times, but not as much. So so somehow you need to reach them, to just stay in touch and let them know that if anybody in their network is looking for help. Yeah.
That's great. Melanie, do you have any marketing strategies that you found to be really helpful in this year specifically? I mean, you shared quite a bit already, but just curious if anything stands out to you.
Well, one thing, and I'll see if this resonates for Amy, that really shifted significantly in the industry on the residential side is using video marketing, or at least 3D imaging. So it used to be that we would do, to market a listing, we would have a floor plan and we'd take lots of photos. And if it were a higher end listing, then we might do a 3D tour where someone can have what feels like a virtual experience of panning through the property. But of course, with showing shut down for a long time, a lot of us just started to pivot right towards 3D tours. So we've just made that a sort of standard part of our approach of marketing property. And then that gives us another piece of content that we can leverage for marketing on social and via email and on our site. So that's been interesting to play around with. And I would say we're just keeping our heads above water with the activity that's in play. There's so much we want to do. But I think one of the things that's going to shift for us is probably doing more video. I actually just recruited a new team member I'm so excited about, just started yesterday. And one of his areas of focus is video. He's like, you know, I see that you tried video a few years ago and then it dropped off and then you try it again. And I think you should be really leaning into that. And so if we did that, and especially now with understanding how people feel this kind of intimacy in the social sphere, but also in a Zoom kind of sphere, that your video doesn't have to be polished. And right, but it also doesn't have to be the thing of like, I'm in my car, look, you know, it could be something in between. We're actually doing something substantive, but it doesn't have to be perfection. And so that's exciting for me, just when we can get ourselves a little bit more headspace to say, okay, let's start doing more strategy where we're going to always do video on this kind of thing. So that's one thing. I think I like the old school stuff. I like paper. I mean, actually use very, very, very little paper in my business life, but I like actually touching people with paper. I like writing. I have, custom stationery designed, and I like to write to people, and I like to send out mailers. So we send out mailers typically to somewhere in like some kind of radius around where I live or around where we've recently had a listing. And it's not like we just sold this house, but it's giving some information, it's giving some context. So we've done that via email as well, with basically me giving my reflection. So it might be like a clip of a video interview I did, plus me reflecting on something that's happened in the last couple of weeks. We'll do that on social as well as email. And I think we could and should be doing more, and we just need a little bit more sleep and help. But I think that's really important. I think one of the things that's shifting is me getting less perfectionist about being on the camera myself and doing just snippets of video, just reflections on things and share it out, because people actually like feeling those touches, and they like feeling like they're tracking you. I mean, so many people that I've been hearing from, they feel like they know everything that's going on with me, and they're like, well, I know you did such and such with your niece, and I know that such and such with your listing lately in the da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, you knew about that? And so they feel like they're keeping tabs and they're in control of referring to me because they know where to find me and they know what I'm up to and they know what they can share to their friends. So a big part of what we always want to do is equip what we call our ambassadors to spread the word about us. And I think video is going to be one of those things that I get less shy about. And I think my marketing manager is finding a lot of relief with that.
Yeah, I've been doing more video too, which I would not have pre-COVID. But one of the things they were saying is video. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do video. So I started a series, Feels Like Home with Amy Balowitz Real Estate. And so I had a stager, I had, and then I also had two graduating seniors talk about how like that looked. I had on Mother's Day, I had moms talking about like very real, like what it's like to have their kids home all the time. And so just a little bit about real estate, but a lot about just people, business.
Yeah.
I've interviewing businesses, like how is this affecting you? How can we help you with like gift cards and buying, what can we do for you during this time? So, and I was pretty consistent about that. It's dropped off a little as I've gotten busier with work, but I definitely think it's important to keep doing, forever, I guess. I think I've had a lot of great response. Yeah, people that you don't know and they say, oh, I love your videos. And you're just like, oh, really? Good.
Yeah.
But they're unpolished, very unpolished. But I'm doing them. Better to be done than perfect, I guess.
But it goes back to that whole idea of humanizing yourself and your business and making that connection with people. I think, that's what people are craving right now, is that personal connection and knowing that they're working with somebody like them that's going through some of the same similarities as them. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
So that's great. I love that idea. So I know we're coming up here on time, but we're having such a great conversation. I don't know, are you able to talk a little bit longer, or?
Yep.
I want to respect your time too. So I kind of want to shift a little bit to, so we're talking about, we've been talking about existing clients and a little bit of prospective clients, but I kind of want to shift to the idea about filling your funnel and finding new prospects to work with. I know that that can be somewhat of a grind anyways, and I'm curious to see or hear from you about how that's shifted during the pandemic. Have you found it more difficult to find new prospects? Have you found it easier? Are they coming to you? Just a little bit more about that experience.
Well, I can start. So one thing we've done, and Ernie's done that because of different resources and all the organizations that he belongs to and the resources they provide, put together a list of, I think, over 1,000 potential businesses in the area. And he went through and filtered them out. So the next step, we started doing a little bit of constant contact testing, and the reports have not been too great. So one thing we haven't done yet is the segmentation. So I think we need to probably try that out and yeah, play a little with the subject line and maybe a little bit more with the information. Maybe take, we were directing them through links to our website or through our website directly to economic indicators and so on. And I realized from some other information that has come through is if we put some direct information on the email right as it opens, and then they can, if they want more, so kind of grab their attention. So that's one thing that I've been working on, and we need to do more, because I think that's going to be a big one.
So you've been going out to them. It's more cold,
Yeah.
I guess, lead generation, right? You're going out there, you're searching for the types of businesses that would be
Right.
renting your properties. Yeah.
Pretty much telling them, what was the tagline? The second subject line, I think it was 40 years and 5 real estate cycles. So show them that, you know, we've been around a long time and we've been through, maybe not like COVID, but certainly, you know, .com busted.
Yes.
98, a lot. So, so we have the experience. So it's getting their attention, and it is a bit of a numbers thing, but we need the numbers to be a little better than, you know, we started off with, I think, a few hundred. So we need to test a few more and maybe get some professional advice. But I like the idea. I know videos, and I think that's something that I need to do as well. And I know I can get into some of the spaces that we actually have listings for. Most of them, they're empty, so it's not a big issue. And I've been the same way, like, oh, you know, hire someone to do it. But probably I could go in just with my camera and talk through for a few minutes. And I think you're both right that with Zoom now, I think people are maybe they're a little bit more open to something that's not perfect and polished.
Yeah, I think they appreciate it, actually. I did one after my run the other day. I mean, I was like a sweaty mess, but I was in front. I was meeting a friend for coffee, and I was just saying I was so excited that, you know, we could finally have an outside seating at the coffee shop that just opened up. And it was very brief, and but it was, you know, it was what it was. I was like, I'm here, I'm going to do it. I don't care that I have sweat all over me.
I want to mention an analogy. You made me think when you said, Melanie, that it's so much more humanizing, that I don't know if it caught your eye, but watching some of the TV shows and the network anchors and some of them working from home, and they don't have the professional hairdo and they don't have all the fancy clothes anymore, and they do their own makeup. And I just found myself just feeling closer. It's just like they're in my home, as opposed to this perfect polished person that I wouldn't want, I'd be afraid, you know, to even say hi to, because why do they want to talk to me? So I think that applies to all of us in business.
Yep. So I can tell, so about what I'm doing for marketing, it's been a little bit of a struggle, because before, you know, I would just count on, you know, school events or hockey games or, you know, just authentic, organic conversations, because everybody, when they know you're in real estate, I mean, it just naturally turns into a conversation about real estate. And then, you know, I just talk to them about it, the market, and, you know, do you know anybody that might be moving to the area? You know, just a very natural conversation. And since we're not having that, it's been a little bit more of a challenge. So I've sort of been using a combination of, you know, like sending just you know, if I have a listing in a neighborhood, sending something to the neighborhood. So like a postcard, the email marketing, like I said, a newsletter, but it's not like a prefab newsletter. It's very much authentic, like something that I've created. So it feels like it's coming from me. And social media for sure. I was on Facebook. I've been toying, with Instagram and things, but definitely my sort of age group is definitely still on Facebook. So just doing both things on my business page, but also just with my kids doing something, or just, whatever, making it both personal and business oriented. And I think that combination has been good, kind of reaching a vast variety of people. And I've been getting a lot of people reaching out to me during this time, because I think a lot of people, either want to make a move or they want to buy, and they're looking for a real estate agent. And luckily they're calling me. So I haven't been doing a whole lot of picking up the phone and trying to get business like I normally would. But I do need to get back into that a little bit more, because I haven't been doing that time block that I typically would.
That's good that they're coming to you still.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's also, you got to take advantage of that.
Right.
The whole point of that, right? Like, that's great. So, as I've been listening to you guys like talk, and I'm just like thinking through some of the things that have stood out to me, is obviously, right, keeping in touch with people that will eventually at some point want to do business or refer business to you. Really, I thought was really interesting too, is each of you talking through this idea of like really changing tactics based on the current situation that we're in and what the particular needs of people are. Education is obviously, like, I think huge for all of you, and the more you can do with video to do that, which kind of just leads just in general, right? Really just doing things to make these like personal connections with people, I think is obviously that the big thing here. I guess the question I would have for each of you, and maybe Marianne, I'll start with you, is if you were to give somebody watching this, and somebody that's in real estate and commercial real estate in your instance, but like if you could give them one piece of advice based on kind of what you're learning here, like what would that be?
Whoa. Yeah. I was thinking of what Melanie and Amy said, and I think the personal touch is really important. And whether it's by phone or email or in writing, I think in this day and age, especially where we feel distant from each other, it just occurred to me that that's probably one of the most important things, is to somehow reach out in a more personal manner. Because in commercial and business, we work with a lot of other brokers for the most part, but we have people reaching out to us directly. And and it can be very formal, and the suit and tie and all, and it's gotten a little less formal. But to be a little more down to earth and a little more empathetic about what the other person's suggestion is.
Yeah.
What the other person's needs and feelings and where they're at.
Yeah.
And then how you can help them.
So I think for me, it's to try to focus on one thing or maybe a couple things that you that are working for you. So if you're looking at through your database, or I try to keep track of where my business is coming from, and so if the 75% of your is coming from your sphere, then focus on your sphere and those connections. And even during COVID, I've been going for walks with people in my neighborhood from the very beginning, just distanced apart, but just still connecting. And now, like the coffee shop, I've been having lots of coffee. That's like, I love to do that before, so I'm sort of getting back into that. And you just those personal connections, like you said, and so that's what I'm really focusing on. And then I also found success with the social media. So again, just keeping up with the videos, keeping up with my posts and things like that. So those are sort of my two big that I've sort of narrowed down. But I think for anybody, it might be something different, but just to focus on those things and not try to do everything, because there's so many things that you can do and so many different trainings and classes, and you could Zoom all day. And I think at the beginning, that's what we were doing. We were just like Zooming, and I was like, oh my God, I cannot do this because I wasn't getting any business done. So
Yeah.
just sort of been narrowing my focus. And it seems to be doing, it makes me more relaxed because, some of the other things I just don't worry about.
Yeah. Yeah. Melanie, how about you?
Yeah, it's like a layered bit of what each of you has said. For me, it's showing up where people are actually. So like that, whether that's at Jamaica Pond, being out in the morning and walking, or in the evening and having people just see me and say hi, it keeps that kind of top of mind. That's really important, but just as much as showing up in their inbox. But I think that I was trying to think about also your last question about, well, what's feeding your pipeline? And I'm still trying to understand what's happening with my pipeline, because truly it is fuller than I've ever experienced. I am literally and truly getting at least one referral a day. And it's been this way for weeks. I'm getting referrals from out of state. I'm getting referrals from people who know me. And I'm trying to understand it, actually. I'm obviously grateful for it. But in listening to you all, I was trying to trace back some of them. And some of it is about that thing of showing up where people are, even online. So I have a number of clients right now and businesses closed from people who heard about me on Facebook. And you know how you say, they've been saying that Facebook's going to be the search engine. And I'm not a millennial. I'm like the generation right before. So I'm just like, whatever. But it's actually happening. So yeah. A few times recently, because people are spending so much time online, they're writing in the Jamaica Plain Moms group, they're writing in this network, the Nextdoor thing. And so people will post a question, including also recently people have been posting, can you refer a Black realtor, right? So people are putting out these questions of the thing they want. And then my ambassadors, my people who are out there like hanging out in these platforms are like, Melanie. So I'll have people writing me and being like, Melanie, on such platform, your name is blowing up right now. 10 people just did a shout out for you. And I'm like, oh, really? I mean, I wasn't there, but that presence is there. And so I'm like, oh, it really does matter that people feel like I'm an extension of their life. They feel like they can just share people to my, they're not even sending necessarily people to my business page, they're sending people to my personal social page. And then those people are finding my website and writing me. So I'm like, oh, that is actually working. I have actually multiple new clients right now where I'm like, oh, who can I thank for referring you to me? They're like, oh, we didn't actually get a referral, but we found your name on Facebook. We were searching and your name came up multiple times in a Facebook search. So I just think, okay, that thing of doubling down on your relationships, your intimates, the people who support you, but also doing that where they are, and not being shy about that. And so that's a thing that I'm learning right now and kind of startled by and would not have expected, that people are out there saying the thing for me as if I were there, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great. It's great when you actually do start to see it like work, right? Because sometimes it can, we often find all of these things can feel like a slog, and there's not always that immediate result. But I've always kind of described it as like it's the work you put in, and it like you're not perfect to start, and nobody's really expecting you to be, but you get better and better as you do it, and then all of those things really do start to snowball, and then have that big payoff with you, where it's like that stuff exists out there, and that's how people find you, right? And so it's really great to hear that you're starting to see that and make those connections, which is really great. So I heard personal connections are really important. Focusing on what's working for you and not worrying about the other stuff, and then really making sure that you're showing up where people are, and even if that means online, right? But it kind of works in both those realms, in person and online. So really cool things there. Thank you guys for that.
I personally have learned so much from today and from you all, and just want to thank you again for participating in our roundtable. It's, I think that this is going to be super valuable for the people who are watching it, that they're going to learn just as much as I did today. And, Constant Contact is just super grateful to have you as customers and willing to participate. So, if there's anything that we can do to help you continue to power on, please let us know. Obviously, Constant Contact has not only powerful tools, but easy to use tools, as well as live marketing advice. And so,
And excellent customer service.
yay! Yeah, that's super important to us.
There are people back there, right?
Yes.
Which is great.
Need a few commercial templates. Don't
to know.
forget about us. It's all residential.
We'll bring that back. We'll bring that back.
But yeah, just again, we wanted to thank you and for sharing and being so candid about your experiences during this time.
Yeah.
So we want to encourage you to keep growing, learning from each other, connecting with people within your industry, and allowing us to be a part of that. So
Yeah.
we thank you, and this was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for having
It's
me.
great
You guys.
meeting you.
Good to be with you.
Everybody.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Wonderful.
Continued success with each of your businesses.
Thank you. Thank you
guys
so
too.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Be safe, everyone, and continued success.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you.